huge advocate for doing daily huddles across the entire company. Everybody. It's one of the first things that we start doing. I think a mutual client of ours started working with us and they were genuinely worried. He said the main thing and he told me this months after, he said the main thing that you asked us to do for the first couple of weeks was daily huddles. And I'm like, why am I paying all this money for that? And he said it was an absolute game changer because now everybody turned up today to a meeting, they're holding each other accountable. I don't have to manage.
Scale Up, the podcast for driving growth in your MSP, delivered by industry experts. Welcome back everybody to the Scale Up podcast. Today I'm joined by Chris from Ethikai, and today we're going to walk through knowing yourself, the frameworks and analogies that you can take forward into your MSP. So Chris, for the audience then, people that don't know you've started a business called Ethikai. Tell us a little bit about yourself. What's your journey look like?
What's my journey look like? So I set Ethikai up a few years ago, really poor timing, just before the AI boom. So it's not Ethic AI, it's Ethikai. So Ethikai is it's a portmanteau. It's a hybrid of two words, ethical and Ikigai. Ethical because I've spent too much time around companies in my time that aren't necessarily ethical. I think there's a better way of doing it. Yeah. And also the Ikigai, which is a Japanese way of life. Us Westerners like to kind of put frameworks behind it, but quite simply, it's about purpose and fulfillment, which is everything that we stand for. So we do that in the...
So you did two clever words, using AI to build it?
No
yourself.
No AI, just really bad timing on my part. So a few months before the boom of AI. But so yeah, it's usually my go-to, which is not AI. So yeah, this is very much human-led. We specifically work with MSPs. We work in the channel. This is the world that we know. Spent time working with the network group on the operations there, worked in MSPs. And yeah, just getting under the hood and helping MSP business owners, the leaders, kind of understand what their vision is, what their goal is, what it is that they're working towards, and work it all back, and then build it up from there. So very much kind of vision and who we need to kind of help us on our quest to get where it is that we're trying to get to, really.
So you've worked in MSPs at the growing level, worked also in the community.
Yeah.
And then sort of tried to wrap that up and said, actually, where I think I can add more value is with the leadership team and the owner to say, why are you doing this?
Yeah, exactly that, really. When we look at MSPs, there's a demographic of people, especially where we are now in 2026, of people who've set a business up because they genuinely enjoy tech. What I see quite often is that an MSP business owner starts a business because they love the tech. They've been fixing computers for their nan or their brother or the cousin or the neighbors or whatever, and they've gone, I want to do this as a career. They'll go and work for somebody and they think, maybe I can go and do a better job myself, and they'll set that business up. And they're doing a great job, and they get another client, and soon, before they know it, they've got no capacity. They go and recruit people, and from that moment is where their job changes. And nobody's taught them how to be a leader, how to take that business to the next level, how to step away from the business and do all the other bits, because the MSP tech side is the service delivery. We've also got sales, we've also got marketing, we've also got finance, we've got strategy, we've got ops, we've got all of this myriad of different things. It can be development, product. How do we make sure that we're spending the right time in the right places and taking ourselves away from that? Because where we gravitate to is the things that we're comfortable with, which is why we started the business. So that's.
But the exciting bit's the shiny toy, isn't it? It's the tech. It's the how do we do this? How do we do that?
Oh, shiny.
Yeah.
The magpie effect. Yeah, I mean, look, you need to just go to any event and see the amount of vendors that are there, which is great because there's lots of ideas and things happening, but then the MSP is just consumed, the owner, by all of these new things that we take on. And we go, oh, I'll try that one, and I'll try that one. I'll try that one, and we'll add this in. And then before we know, we've got no control because we're not looking at finance as much as we should be looking at it, because we're still the business owner. We're the ones who sign that VAT return and that corp tax. We're the ones who put our name to it. But we're not analysing all these things that we're adding onto our stack. And not only have we then got complexity from the financial perspective of the business, what are we paying for, what are we using? But then our techies are like, well, we've got to be experts at everything. So really, what is it that we're trying to achieve? So yes, all of these tools out there are amazing, but are they actually fixing a problem, or are we creating a problem? So all of this, when you're in the weeds, is a really obvious solution to go and take this product. Let's go and bring this one on board. I mean, you've probably been there. You've been through the ranks.
I love a shiny toy. Yeah. Love a monthly subscription.
Yeah.
Bring me on.
I mean, who doesn't? Especially now with AI, it's everywhere, isn't it? Sorry, let's not go too much down the AI route, but they're everywhere, you know. And right now, I spend my evenings playing with Claude code because it's cool, it's different. But I can't let that consume my life because I've got commitments and things to do, and I've got, you know, not a full understanding of everything that happens. And I think the important element is, which is where we come in, which is where understanding why we exist and what it is that we're trying to achieve. And when we look at these tools, back to that point I just mentioned, what problem are we fixing? You know, and is it part of the solution, or are we going to add to the catalogue of problems that we don't know how to mitigate? So yeah, it's an endless kind of loop of new products. We just got to ask ourselves why are we taking this new product on? What is it solving? I had a client and they did an all hands meeting, maybe 150 staff. And it was the first one that they ever did. And I sat in the wings and I just watched. And the CEO came on and gave this kind of overview. And then the finance director came on and talked about finance, and then handed over to marketing and talked about marketing, and then marketing handed over to sales. And we kind of created then this picture of silos. So when he asked me for my feedback, and I'm like, okay, probably a little bit too deep, and actually what you've done is reinforce silos across the business. I don't know whether I'm answering your question or going off on a tangent. So, but I think it's important to remember that we are one unit. Everything that we do is in service of what we're trying to achieve and who we're trying to do it for. And a lot of the time we get too far away from that. So it's about bringing it back constantly. So my feedback to them was, I think you'd be better served having one person present. And as opposed to kind of labeling, right, I'm going to talk about finance now, just give an overview of kind of like where we're at as a business. Are we profitable? You know, are we heading in the right direction? Are we on track for budget? And then move on to marketing without saying it's marketing. It's all part of the same company. So when I first started out in operations, because I'm through and through an operator, it's probably why we get on so well, I remember being told that one day you'll be sat in a board meeting and a random task will come out. Whatever, a random task will come out, and then the CEO will say, CIO, is it for you? And they'll go, no, it's not for me. And the CTO will go, no, it's not for me. And the CRO will go, no, it's not for me. And they get all the way around, and the last person that they ask is COO. Because ops is everything that nobody else wants, right? That's what ops is. That's not what ops is, but that happens time and time again. Ops is almost the nucleus, it's the heartbeat, it's the everything in the middle. And what their job is to connect everything. We're here to make sure we understand what goes on over here, not intricately, not granularly, not in its finite detail, but you need to understand what happens, where it communicates to. Because if you've got marketing over here and service delivery over here, and they're not talking, well, are we pushing the right message out there? Or if we've got sales and service delivery, I like to use service delivery as a point of contact, but are we selling the right thing? Or are we able to commit to those things? So all of these things, even finance, they're connected. They're part of the same, they're a family. You know, I know we don't like to talk about business as family because, you know, would you fire your daughter? Well, maybe.
I think that's the same when you think about a leadership structure as well, or the owner sat at the top. So what I see is the owner tries to advocate the problem, because now we've got someone that just deals with finance in the background, and it just happens for us.
Yeah.
Where I think what a good business looks like is each person in their role knows a bit about the other roles.
Yeah.
So a leadership in the ops side should know a percentage of how a P&L works and how finance works and what it actually means. So then they can understand why they're marving them for a month-end report around projects and what happens if we pull these levers and what happens if we hire these people. And then the owner should know another level because they are also responsible for, as you mentioned, the back return, paying everybody and keeping everyone's families together. But often what I see is, whether it's marketing or finance or etc., people advocate the problems to the person that they've just hired.
Yep.
I don't want to know anything about it now.
Yeah. I think, I think this goes back to understanding who you are as a business. I'm going to try and approach that from a different level. So I've said it maybe 3 or 4 times now. Why do we exist? What do we stand for? So we got our why. What do we stand for? How do we make decisions? They're our values. They're not these fluffy things that sit on the wall. They're not just for marketing purposes. They can be used for that, but they're there to help us make decisions, right from wrong. This is our barometer. This is our differentiator. This is who we are. This is how we hire people. So if we understand that, we're bringing the right people onto the bus, so to speak, and then we put them in the right seat, and they're the right person for that job, what they need is accountability. So going back to your point, yes, everybody should have a percentage understanding of what is happening because, I've got a wife and 2 kids and we sit down at the dinner table every night and we talk about our days and we've all got an understanding of what's going on in each other's lives so we can be more empathetic and we can help make decisions around that. The same thing happens on a weekly tactical meeting. Huge fan of tactical meetings. And that is where the scorecard comes in. I think one of the frameworks, EOS Traction, talks about a scorecard of 5 to 15 kind of numbers. And that is a very difficult set of numbers to curate because you want to look at what's going to be affected over the week. But what we're doing is we're building trust throughout the business. When a finance owner comes on and says, these are my 3 numbers for finance, this is where we're at, it might be age debt, invoices 100% up to date, for example, whatever it is. But they're saying we're on track. I'm the right person for this role because it's peer-to-peer. So I think that accountability is right. Yes, we advocate problems, but really this is about who, not how. So we've gone from a world of doing everything, and then over time we've become, okay, my job now as CEO, if you're CEO, is Chief Everything Officer, Chief Evangelist, Chief Everything, basically. But you can't know everything in a granular fashion because you're going to be the bottleneck to the business then. So there needs to be a level of trust that you build through the business, and you need to do that through. I'm a huge fan of trust bucket full. Always start a relationship, trust bucket full. It's your job to erode that trust. If you erode it, it's tough to get it back.
Yeah, there's a reason why I hired you. if you were the right person in the first place, then I shouldn't have hired you, which means I can't trust you.
Absolutely. So yes, we do push the problems over, and we do need to have an understanding. An org chart is, in my opinion, the best. If we look CEO, and then we've got a leadership team, and we've got the heads of department, then we've got the teams, the third liners, second liners, first liners. It's not about seniority, it's about communication. Because all we need to know in that scorecard up there, in a weekly leadership meeting, is how this is affecting the people that we serve. Are we doing a good job? Are we doing a bad job? Are the people who are our ambassadors, our first line engineers, are they happy? Have they got the tools that they need to do their job on a day-to-day basis? All of these things, yes, we design a lot of complexity with all of these tools like we talked about a few minutes ago.
And as a technical person, whenever we look at anything, we create complexity because we love the process.
One of my core messages when I first started in ops was turn complexity into simplicity. We've all heard it a million times. And it's kind of like, how do you turn a paragraph into a bullet point? Well, my job in ops is to understand the complexity, but then to deliver simplicity to everybody else. So our job in a leadership team is almost to protect the people in the business from the complexity and allow them to deliver simplicity. because there are certain personalities, there are certain we call them the geniuses from the 6 types of working genius that lend themselves to different positions. And again, it's not about hierarchy, but the people who just like doing, they want absolute clarity. They hate ambiguity. We'll give them a checklist. And if it's about understanding the people that sat in those seats, hiring the right people for that kind of function, and allowing them to do their job. But then not doing this. I don't know whether I'm going on a tangent here again, but the conversation that we've got going with the client at the moment, new ops manager, has been brought on, and I'm kind of working with them to kind of understand their roles, first ops manager role that they've ever taken on. And they come from a HR background, and they want to do annual appraisals. And I'm not the biggest fan of annual appraisals. I think the fact that we're talking to people is great, but how much can you remember? I mean, I can't remember what happened last week, let alone a year ago.
Yeah.
And when you go down to that granularity and you hold accountable, what you end up doing on an annual basis is you end up kind of saying, how can I get you to do more without paying you less? And that's what the employee feels going to do an annual appraisal, so to speak. But the what's the book called? Turn That Ship Around. Is a great kind of message that goes through that, which is little and often, so every day. So what we're doing basically is we're having this daily huddle every day, and then we're doing this double back with them, and we're helping them develop and understand where they're going wrong. And that could be from a tooling perspective, it's having that constant conversation. So it's all about communication. It's all about clarity. It's all about communication.
Yeah, communication is the key. And what often happens is, and it happens in my life as well, is we get busy doing the things that we actually shouldn't be doing. The outcome of being too busy on things that you shouldn't be doing, because now you haven't got the time to do the things that are going to make the difference.
Absolutely, and ultimately you end up making uninformed decisions, uninformed opinions on things because you haven't got the full context that's going on. And actually, if we take a step back and we just deploy a bit of trust, and we use those as, it sounds corny, but as teaching moments, because do you know what? Sometimes they're going to cock up, they're going to get them wrong. And I know Wiganese well because I went to college in Wigan. I speak Wiganese. But yeah, I think, again, that clarity and communication. But we talk about in the business and on the business quite a lot. It's this term that gets thrown around a lot, and I agree with it. However, there's some caveats.
But going to an event's working on the business.
Absolutely. I completely agree.
So I've ticked that box. That's it. Done.
Yeah. And then, where does that go? And how do we do something with that? It's a really important point you make, because is it just a jolly? How do we communicate that to the guys in the business who are there kind of going, well, Darren's off at another event.
So pictures, so at the bar.
I've got a backlog of tickets, but Darren's all right. But actually what you're doing is you're growing the business, you're growing yourself, you're growing different ways of working, but how does that cascade? So after every event, there should be a cascade, there should be a takeaway, there should be something that we go and do. And that needs to then filter through the business. And these are all just mechanisms that we need to put in. So everything starts with 3 things. So we got mindset, we got behavior, and we got habit. So your mindset is that I want to work on the business. I want to go to events. I want to go and talk to peers. I want to go and stand up and give my thoughts to people. I want to run a workshop. I want to look at all the new tools that are out there. Great. The behavior then is like, how do we do something with it? How do we then feed it back into the business? And the habit is doing it without even thinking. This becomes natural. And the same thing happens from whether it's a 90-minute weekly, 60-minute weekly leadership meeting, or a full day, 2-day offsite. Well, are we treating it in a silo? Is it going anywhere? Are we just kind of like tapping each other's back? Is it about ego because we're sat over here and they're sat over there? Because sometimes it is. But what's the point in it? What's the message that we're then taking back? Because I tell you what, I've sat in a lot of tactical meetings where every single action that comes out, and sometimes there can be 40 actions that come out of these meetings between 4 or 5 people. They're taken away by the people in that meeting, and then done by the people in that meeting. And then they come back and they go, do you know what, I didn't get them all done, I didn't have enough time. I'm like, well, you've got a team of people. And they're like, yeah, but they don't know about these actions. These are my actions. I'm like, okay, well, your job is to make sure that they're done, not to do it all. That's why we employ people who are better at doing some of this stuff. So the important thing is, like, after every single meeting, event, things like that, cascading message. What's your one-liner? What are you pushing back to the team? You might be MD, you might be CEO, you might be in charge of that element, but is there a functional role that you need to play in the business as well? And what is that? And what have you got to kind of be accountable for? What have you got to do?
Yeah.
But
And that's why I like instead of an org chart, I like the role chart that Traction do.
yeah,
Because now we've got all the roles in the business, and you might have same name multiple times, but it clearly shows then that that person is actually fulfilling those roles.
absolutely. Well, this goes back to the Jim Collins bus, doesn't it?
Yes.
Which, for anybody who doesn't know about it, the bus is the business. The driver of the bus is usually the CEO, the visionary, if we're talking Traction language, and they're going to define where the business is going, so where the bus is going. And then we've got the seats on the bus. But before we can put people on the seats in the bus, we need to understand who we let on the bus. They're your values. Do they fit the values? Seats on the bus, well, we can't have two different bums in one seat, but we can have somebody who owns multiple different seats.
Yeah.
So when I've mapped out,
So why can't we have two bums in one seat? Seat's not big enough.
right,
Might be a bit of a coach going on the back seat.
there could be a chaise-longue going on. Draw me like
Everyone
one of your
likes the
French
back of the
girls.
bus, don't they?
Yeah, go straight to the back. Because it becomes, if we're looking at this now from a viability perspective in a business rather than the bus, you become, what's the word? When two people own one, you get diffusion of responsibility. That's what I was looking for. And one person goes, well, I thought you were doing it. And they go, well, I thought you were doing it. Or what's worse is like, I've done it. What do you mean you've done that? I've done that as well. And then we've now wasted time. So we need one owner, one functional accountable, one person owner. Rightly or wrongly, America has this constitution, and it's worked for years and years and years. And what that is a set of standards. So what we should have in any business is a set of standards, and that's permission to play. You know, how far, you know, what can I do? What can't I do? And is it mine or is it somebody else's? And if we've got that clarity, we know what we know what we're turning up to do, and we know what we've got to achieve. So when we're looking at our day, you're talking before about kind of getting too involved, not getting everything done, and this is essentially the bottleneck problem that a lot of us suffer with. Lay your day out, you know, and I do it from a week-to-week perspective, and then granularize it on a day-to-day. And because I get this paralysis of tools, I like the old-fashioned paper thing. Really, I got a Sharpie, I've got a piece of paper, got me old-fashioned. And when someone comes in, I just write it down. Like if it's something that's quite high level and I know that I need to do, but I can't do it right now, I just write it down. I get this long list of stuff and then I just cross it off. So when I start every single day, I go, well, what am I going to cross off today? And they become the three things that I need to do today. And I do that myself. I do that with my team. I facilitate them for client teams, and it's dead easy to do. And all you got to do is repoint them, because every week I'm also doing a weekly tactical meeting. And that weekly tactical meeting says, this is where I want to be next week. So when we come into the day-to-day element, it's like, okay, guys, can we make sure that we're pointing towards here, because we need to be here in a week.
So you've branched away a little bit there, and you've mentioned a number of meetings.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to bring back, because I think some of the audience will be thinking, you mentioned these meetings, but like, what meetings should I be doing if you're telling me you've got these tactical, you've got these huddles? Like, what does it look like?
I guess a really negative thought process about meetings, which has become, I think, exaggerated over the years, especially since COVID, because now everything's a meeting. Where it used to be, I'm just going to nip over to somebody's desk and have a chat, now needs to be a scheduled meeting. So I understand this paralysis of meetings kind of thought, but we can classify them as what we want. You know, a sync, a meeting, doesn't really matter. In my opinion, there's a cadence of meetings that should happen, because again, this is about communication. And they're all interconnected from one to the other. So you've got daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, and annually. Daily, tactical, weekly is tactical. Now, what I mean by that is we're quite low level, we're quite granular. So daily, we're looking at stuff over a 24-hour period, shocker. But weekly, we're looking at things over a 7-day period, tactical. So what we want to be thinking of over that weekly period is kind of viewing it as a rumble strip. So we've got a rumble strip on a road, and if we hit the rumble strip, it's kind of like a warning sign.
Is that what they're called?
Yeah.
I never knew that. So, I know what you mean by going over the bumps, but I never knew they were called a rumble strip.
So what's it there for? It's there to tell you if you do not course correct, you're going to have an accident. Something's going to happen. It could be bad. It might not be that bad. We don't know. But that's the early warning sign. That's a week. So that's the rumble strip meeting. And then what you've got is a monthly strategic meeting. This is slightly higher elevation. So we're going and we're not necessarily talking about how we're going to do everything. We're looking kind of like, well, what's maybe happened a little bit? It's kind of looking leading and lagging indicators. Lagging has already happened. And then we've got the quarterly meeting, again, higher. And then we've got the annual meeting, even higher. So like the annual meeting should be those three at the top, monthly, quarterly, and annual, strategic meetings. They're very much on the business that we talk about. We're looking at, in the annual meeting, we're looking at, is our plan right? Are we on track to our 3-year goal, our 10-year goal, whatever that might be? That's the kind of place that you'd really want to look at things like EBITDA, that kind of stuff. And we can keep track of it throughout the year. I'm not saying ignore it and let's go, let's see where we're at. Doesn't work like that. But really kind of looking at it as an outcome is the strategic annual meeting. So all of those talk to each other, but you can't, if you look at it just in that linear form, daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, annually, then what's your daily talking to? Well, you need to look at it in the opposite direction. The strategy is what's going to dictate what happens on a daily basis, because it's then granularized. So we kind of have that information to go, what do we need to do to get there? And that's what we need to kind of check in on. So I'm not a big fan of doing scorecards for daily. It's just a bit paralysis of information, which is more about kind of what we're going to achieve. And that's more the dashboards, things like that, whatever it is that you're using, Halo, Bright Gauge, whatever. Understand your numbers, understand where we need to be pointed, where we're tracking. But that's the leader of that meeting's job, not the people turning up to it. They won't be pointing. But yeah, so all that information should be cascading through. So what you're discussing in your strategy meeting on your annual basis is then broken down to your 4 quarters. What do we want to achieve? How are we going to get there? Because you're not just going to arrive. What we're incredibly good at as human beings is, get this the right way around, underestimating where we'll be in the long term and overestimating where we'll be in the short term. And it's making it so it's viable. And a lot of the time we go, we're going to add 10 new clients next quarter. Wow. Okay, excellent. How many did you do last year? Got 1. Excellent.
Yeah.
You've seen this before, haven't you?
Yeah.
Well, okay, let's kind of make this realistic and let's go, this is where we want to be in a year. How are we going to get there? And that could be a hockey stick. Okay, well, we need to do some operational elements. We need to make sure we've got the right documentation, the right capacity, the right systems, all of this stuff. We need to make sure that that's ready. We can't do nothing and maybe start the top of funnel work. Let's do some outbound, let's do some videos, let's do some talk. Let's do that element there and let's track that. And then maybe quarter 2, quarter 3, we can start going, okay, let's now start looking at the numbers and the people that we're going to ask anybody what their strategy. Have you got a strategy? Like, yeah. What's your strategy? And they'll come up with this amazing answer. And then you go away and come back 10 minutes later. What's your strategy? It'll give you a different answer. And I think his name is Michael Porter, who's a Harvard University professor, wrote an amazing book, and it's about that thick, and it's about strategy. It's a tough read. The main takeaway that you'll get out of it is something that anybody who's done any of the frameworks, traction, metronomics, scaling up, great game of business, I think it's covered in most of those, if not all of them, is unique differentiators. And actually, what strategy is understanding what sets you apart from everybody else and how you're going to utilize it is the how. That's more the tactical element. This just so we use 3 unique differentiators. So one on their own, I'll give you mine for example. So me saying that I have channel native expertise. I'm not a techie. I get the channel. I know people. I know the way it works. But our business is all around the channel. This is for our American friends, our niche. And on its own, does that set me apart? No, not at all. There's lots of other people doing that. Okay, well, let's add another one on there. What's my next one? Okay, my next one is we are intentionally not purists. And what I mean by that is we don't stick to one framework. So we decided early on that we don't want to be certified in any particular framework, because then we have to be super rigid to that. And I think there's better ways of doing it. Okay, are we the only people doing that? No, there's fewer.
Which narrows the field.
And then add a third one on there, which is we are proud to be builders, not consultants. So those three differentiators are just examples that then set you apart from everybody else, and they allow you to own what it is that you're doing. That is strategy. So when we understand what our strategy is and what sets us apart from everybody else, we're then able to build around it and build people and get the people on the bus that believe in what it is that we're trying to do as well. And then coming to work becomes enjoyable. And going back to that conversation we had before about trust and accountability through your verticals of finance, for example. Well, we've brought the right person onto the bus. We've got a better chance of doing that because we've hired more around values rather than just competency. Some of the roles, yes, we have to have certain things in order.
But you can teach people the competency.
Exactly. Yeah.
You can't change who they are.
No, I mean, I'm not going to bring an FD in who's got no idea they're just a good person. But
yeah, he was great at the bar.
Yeah, we had a really good chat. What's more important for longevity and tenure is that they're the right person.
Yeah,
we can have the right people, but yes, they can often be in the wrong seat. And then I believe this is where burnout comes from. So burnout is not being in the right seat doing the work that you love doing and just doing too much of it. That's just tiredness.
Yeah, because if you think about personas, like I'm a big fan of Larry Little's Make a Difference. You're a big fan of Work of Genius. I think actually from a bit of research I've done, they come together very nicely because they're different things. But that's what you're actually talking about. You're actually talking about putting somebody in the wrong seat, so they have to express more energy to achieve it. They can achieve it, but they express more energy because it's not the personal tendency.
Yep.
And that's what creates the burnout.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think I was brought up with a saying from my dad, which is treat people the way that you want to be treated, which was a good way of looking at things, but actually the world, not that the world has changed, I've just lowered my chair.
You went down with
it. Treat people the way that they want to be treated, which requires a different set of eyes. You need more pragmatism, and you definitely need more empathy. You need to kind of understand how different people operate and how they want to be communicated. So we've got there's a myriad of tools for this stuff, just as much as there is for your tech stack.
Yeah.
You know, Myers-Briggs, which is great, tried and tested DISC, Larry Little, Working Genius, they're everywhere. There's so many of them. But it's understanding that we're using the right tools for the right things, just like we're doing in the tech stack. And a great example that I get hit with quite often is, well, why do I need to do Working Genius? I've done DISC. I'm like, but they're different things. I'm like, what do you mean? They're both psychometric tests. I'm like, well, they are and they aren't. So here's, and I'm not an expert in DISC, by the way. I am a Working Genius facilitator, certified, but I'm not in DISC. I've done DISC, I've been through DISC quite a few times. DISC is about communication preferences. That's what it's about. It doesn't define you as an individual. Doesn't mean that you, I was a high C. It also changes a little bit, DISC, over time, depending on your environment and situation.
Yeah.
I'm a high C, which is I'm a detail guy, the camel guy. I like kind of going through this, but actually I like to receive information from a high D. I want be brief, be bright, be gone. I want kind of brevity. But if I create something and make a mistake, and me getting dragged over the coals, which has happened earlier in my career, because you're a high C. You're our high C in this business. Why are you making mistakes? I'm like, well, I'm still human, you know? So it's about communication, whereas, the Working Genius is, the reason that I gravitated towards the Working Genius is because of its simplicity. And it's not a psychometric. It's 80% productivity, 20% personality. And it's all about actually where you get joy. You've done some reading up on it. And it's about what fills your bucket and what empties your bucket. And I want to, think Pareto principle, 80-20 rule. I want to spend 80% of my time in things that I really enjoy doing. In things that, because when you do that, you become innately curious And when you become curious, you go down rabbit holes. And when you go down rabbit holes, you become an expert and you think of new ways of doing things just by doing your job. I'm not going to do that if I'm doing something I don't like doing.
Yeah.
And this is why this is why tenures become short, because we're not necessarily sat in that. And this is a really great understanding, in my opinion, as to how to understand yourself and the other people around you and put real simple language behind it. Yeah, and it's dead cheap to do it. I mean, you don't need to do it through me. You can do it directly through the website. It's like $25 an assessment, and you get the takeaway straight away. But this is all about awareness, self-awareness, and this is not just work. This is everything. But these tools are great, but it's understanding what they do and how to use them. What's the application behind them.
So we talked a bit about planning. For me, the number one plan is what we're going to do at the end of this. Like, why are we doing all this? What's this asset going to look like? So I want to talk a bit about everyone's myth around it's either 1 million, 2.5 million, 5 million. That's when I'm going to get out. You know, what do you see happening there with customers and in the community that you're in?
Good question, and one that comes up quite a lot on the talks that you go to. Seems to be this 1, 2.5, 5, 10, 15. It's all this kind of this target of money, which is great because we need something to work towards. However, I try and approach it slightly differently, and what I mean by that is, I think I can go into any MSP and I say, what are you doing? Why are you only at 400 grand? You should be at 750 now. Or maybe you want to be at 1 million, or let's 2.5 or 5. I think what's more important is really understanding, I'm not trying to make this fluffy, but why did we decide to set this business up in the first place? And what is our ultimate goal? Because quite a lot of the time, we don't know what we're working towards. We're doing it because this is part of our routine now. We just do it. We just turn up. We go through the same motions every day. And I think when we're looking at this number, which is a great target, it's not the ultimate. It's a mechanism. It's something that happens on the back of working towards our target. So I'm trying to frame it in the best way, which is it's all very personal to the person who started the business and what it was that they decided to set out. So let me ask you a question. You're married, aren't you?
Yeah.
Yep.
I've got a boss.
You got a boss. So when was the last time that you got into the passenger seat and Angela? It's Angela, isn't it?
No, that's my sister.
Oh, is that your sister?
Yeah, Emma.
It just got weird quickly.
Everyone does say that though.
Emma.
Angela goes on consulting calls and she's like, so where's Darren? You're like, yeah, he's my brother.
Fair enough. It just got weird. Sorry about that. But okay, so Emma. So when's the last time you got in a car in the passenger seat and Emma was driving? She was driving for, I don't know, an hour and a half. And you're like, where are we going? And she's like, I don't know yet. I haven't worked it out. Doesn't happen, does it? It's never going to happen. We run businesses like this all the time. This is quite often. And I think what's really important is to understand what success looks like to the individual, as opposed to copying somebody else's version of success. Because we see, we have access, unfiltered access to everything now. I'll not get into that with the kids. But the Instagram, the LinkedIn, the talks, and we're seeing the best versions of everybody. This is what I'm doing, but what you're not doing is seeing under the hood and what that means. So I think understanding what it is that you're trying to build, you don't need to go kind of like super profound here. It can be the same as somebody else's, but it actually needs to be yours. Are you trying to build a lifestyle business? Because if you are, saying that you're going to be 5 million quid and is going to be tough. You got a lot of work to do. You're going to have to put a lot of time. Those 40-hour weeks are probably going to be gone, especially for the short term, because let's be honest, whilst we can say build it up, build the right people, you've got to be very fortunate to land on the right people that are going to help you do it, that allows you to just stay in your zone. Doesn't happen quite like that in reality, does it? Let's be honest.
No,
it's about having the who's around you, but it takes time to get those people. So if you want a lifestyle business, that is fine. That's all good. Make sure your targets talk to that lifestyle business.
Well, that's a great point though, isn't it? Because everyone goes, lifestyle business. No, I can't tell anyone I'm a lifestyle business because that's bad. like, that's just seen in the community as that's bad.
Yep.
So what I'm going to do is brainwash myself that I'm actually building an asset, then get frustrated about the fact that I don't build an asset because I'm actually a lifestyle business, when actually there's nothing wrong with either.
Yeah.
Just decide which one it is and then run the business like that, because that changes all your decisions, what you do in a day, what you stress about, how much money you take out of the business. It changes everything.
Yeah, but I've gone the other way as well, because I was doing a discovery call, prospect call, and we're having usually, I don't know, maybe 60 minutes, 90 minutes, where we just talk. That's it. And I made an assumption, and my dad always used to tell me, makes an ass out of you and me, and I did exactly that, which was, it was this guy, lovely guy, he was killing himself, he was struggling with hiring team members, and was bringing the wrong people in. I had an idea as to why this was happening, but he talked about, he had a wife, he's got 3 kids, and I said to him, okay, how many hours are you working? And he said, 70. I'm like, okay. I said, would I be right in assuming that, if you could spend more time with your wife and more time with your kids, and watch them grow up and be part of it, that would be a kind of level of success for you? He said, no, I'd hate that. I don't want to be involved in that. And do you know what? That's all right. I don't agree with it. It's not for me, but I don't have to agree with it. My job...
It's about him being clear with that.
Exactly, and this goes back to the frameworks why we're not purists. My job is not to say this is how we go and do it. My job is to help people understand what it is that they're trying to work towards, and then we'll work a path out as to how to get there. But the key element is understanding what good looks like to that person, not to everybody else. So when you're looking at this magic number, 2.5 million, 5 million, all that stuff, does it talk to your plan? Great if it does. Well, we'll help you get there.
Yeah.
But it comes at a cost.
Knowing yourself first and knowing where you're going to put yourself into a place where you've got that 80% bucket of I'm fulfilling my world, and you're energizing, you're charged, versus putting yourself in a place because you want to copy somebody else, which now means you haven't thought about the fact that you're going to have to go to 60 events a year. You're not going to see your family. But that has to compare, doesn't it?
Yeah. 100%. But this goes back, exactly that. You kind of look at what somebody else has got and go, I want that. And then you start doing it like, do I want this? And I know we're talking to an MSP audience, but I know a lot of people in the MSP audience that do a lot of endurance and tech stuff. There's probably something like this.
There's definitely something there about that, yes.
You do stupid stuff like me as well.
Yeah.
I had a goal. I used to have a goal, and that goal was to do an Ironman. I looked at it, I'm like, I wanted that. I just want that status, I guess, is what it used to be. I want to know if I can do it, for one. The 7-8 months of relentless 20-hour weeks of training, which is essentially a part-time job, on top of having 2 kids and a business and a wife, obviously, can't forget the wife, and then nutrition.
I was just going to say food, all that food.
All of this stuff. This is an entire overhaul of your life, which is part of the good thing, but also takes its toll. There are very clear similarities between doing endurance stuff and running a business, because it is an endurance sport. Nobody ever says to you, what time did you do? They're just like, great job. But the only person who cares how quickly you've done it is you. That's it. Nobody else. And your training partner, because he berates me. And he'll also, if he's watching, he'll go, you didn't do 20 hours a week every week.
Yeah.
I had to track you out.
wanted to.
But yeah, so there are costs behind everything. And I think, it's almost like, I've not been there. I've not sold my own business. I know lots of people who have. I imagine it to be like purgatory a little bit. You're not in heaven and you're not in hell, and you kind of just kind of sat there waiting for, well, which way do I go now? What's the route? Motivation on its own is not enough to kind of see it through. There needs to be purpose. There needs to be a cause, something that you're working towards, something that gets you up every morning, like you say, and gets you out on those rainy, cold nights. And, when there's another P1, it gets you coming into the office and going, right, we're going to fix this. We're going to do it right. And we're holistically going to stop it from happening again. Doing that as a habit every time takes its toll when you've been running an MSP for 20 years, until you've walked a mile in another person's shoes. You haven't got a clue. When you listen to some of these stories and you look back on reflection as to what's happened and made you who you are, this is your why. And then we come up with this statement, basically, which is a to and so that. Now, this is yours initially. So to is the contribution, so to others, and the impact is the so that is the impact. So mine, for example, is to help others be everything that they can be so that they can help other people be everything that they can be. It's kind of pay it forward mentality. I just like getting involved in helping people. And so when you understand that and you're the person who set a business up, guess what? Talks very, very, very closely to the business that you've set up. So that's the why. And we do that usually if you're a one-man band, we'll do that with that. We don't need to do it twice, really. It's the same thing. If you're a one-man, an owner of a business which has maybe got 25 staff, you've probably got a leadership team of 3 or 4 people. Let's bring those people in. Let's kind of have that conversation. We'll do that more about all the history of the business, all the things that have gone well and not gone well, success stories, what the things that would rather not happen again. And we go through that. We do the same for the business. So that's the why. The values is then extrapolated from that, because what we're doing is picking out all those visceral moments, and we're understanding how we've made decisions in the past and what it is that we stand for, what we've said no to, what we said yes to. Again, it's all part of the framework.
Those gut feelings.
Yeah, exactly. So that's the why and the how. And now what we need is what we're working towards. So here's the cool part. This is actually a Jim Collins Mars group exercise where you take, talk about A players, but this is like, if you were to take Scalable and you're going to go to Mars and you're going to colonize Mars and start Scalable all over again, who would you take? Give me 3, 4 people.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't want to know why, I just want to know those. And then we take those, and those people become essentially your Mars group. And we end up looking at these people, what they stand for, and the reasons why we picked those. Again, this then talks to the values as well. So we're reaffirming all of that. But this then becomes the goal. You know, what does good look like becomes part of this whole trifecta. It's not a silver bullet. There's a lot of conversational to and fro-in that comes out of it. But those 3 things together are allowing you to build a business that you want to build. That trifecta is super important to know. I do come across a lot of businesses who tried the best, or maybe had a poor facilitator, or whatever reason, but they've gone, let's just look at what other companies we like out there, and what values have they got, and what should we emulate, and what sounds good, and what's going to help us get new clients. And essentially, they become confusing to people, and they become nothing.
But that's also, this is almost like what we want to be rather than what we are.
Aspirational values, and this is something that Pat Lencioni
So that should mean that you sack half your staff.
Yeah, I think there are certain things that we can aspire to, but they shouldn't be part of our kind of core elements of the business. You know, like I'd like to be, I don't know, a ballerina, for example. I'm not going to tell everybody that I'm a ballerina. I ain't got a clue how to be a ballerina. I'm 2 left feet. So it really it's about distinguishing the difference between core and aspirational. You know, what would be good, but what is already there and has already been there. We're just bringing out the words. That's all we're doing. We're helping it easier for people to quantify and use. And if you ask what they're for, well, they're excellent for marketing, but that's not their purpose. They're actually to help people. If you think of the Mount Everest, if you heard the Mount Everest analogy, it's basically there to stop people falling off the mountain. You know, what keeps us on the path. If we stick to these values, we'll keep on the path. If not,
For me, the way I explain it is, how do we replicate those 5 people again and again and again? So we hire and we fire and we manage by it.
Exactly, yeah. And then the reiteration and the constant. So like when we've set these values, when we've articulated them and agreed that these are the ones, and we've run it through the business and everybody's behind it, it's then become, like, for example, we go through a weekly tactical meeting, double back on what we were talking about before, when it gets to the things that we need to deep dive in, the issues, for example, or the blockers or the tensions, whatever you want to call them, well, we kind of have really 3 elements. I think is it a decision that we need? Is it a discussion, or is it just an FYI? We're just telling people about something that we've done. When we've got to a decision, and even the discussion element, we decide by going, okay, does it live up to the values, or does it negate the values? You know, it might not be binary and as clear as that every time, but ultimately, if it's clearly negating, going against what your value is, then your value is either wrong, or you're compromising yourself.
But if it's all right as well, that's a really good way of getting the owner out of every decision.
Yeah.
Because if the owner starts to repeat the fact that I said yes because of this value, well, then eventually people will get to the point where they will know to say yes because they understand why the yes actually.
Absolutely. And all of this stuff, understanding this stuff, is what fixes this age-old problem of, I remember years ago I went to an event and it's the same conversation time and time again. There's no talent out there. Well, there is. You're just not looking in the right places, or you're not asking the right questions. And the problem is that we've got this barrier to entry for a level 1 technician. Like, no disrespect to a level 1 technician, but it's the starting point of their journey a lot of the time. Well, how can I have 5 years of experience being a level 1 technician? And if I have, is it because I want to be a level 1 technician forever, or is it because I'm not very good? Or have I already got a job somewhere else and I'm not looking for a job? That's where we go, okay, well, if I understand who we are, I got these values, I can now hire against these values. And it's actually, we've got all the tools out there to go, I don't know, this is my business in Claude, ChatGPT, or whatever. These are my values. Just come up with a couple of questions and help me qualify in interviews against these values. You don't. That's how we should be using AI for things like this. And that becomes then a filter for bringing the right people into the team. And then when you're doing your reviews, you know, whether it's especially probation, you should be having regular one-to-ones, catch-ups. Are we finding? We're qualifying these all the time, and then we're constantly baking them into how they make decisions, how they work. But it starts with bringing the right people into the business, and then we can train them up. We can teach them how to be a level 1, because we should have checked for a level 1 technician. We should have
you can teach them the competencies.
Should have these things. Yeah.
Great conversation, Chris. I think there's lots and lots of value there, lots of frameworks that people can research, lots of words that I don't even think I know what they were. But it was a great conversation. Let's sort of summarize this now for people that's watching. I think my key takeaway from your conversation is actually know yourself. Know yourself, know what you want out of this, and then build a plan around that. What's your key takeaway, Chris?
Yeah, couldn't agree more. I mean, look, it's been good fun. Love talking about this stuff. So yeah, thanks for having me. But the mine leads on from yours, really, which is, if you understand yourself, let's understand where it is that we're heading and what good looks like. And yeah, just take a moment, bit of quiet time, and let's try and put a pin in the future. Because when we say we're working towards the horizon, guess what? When we look up in 5 years, that horizon's still there. Let's put a pin in the horizon and say that's where we're working towards, and that's what good looks like. And try not to make it about money either, because it's tough to get your team excited about that.
If you've enjoyed the conversation and you want to know more about Chris, where can they find you, Chris?
Yeah, so I am on I'm on LinkedIn. I have a fortnightly newsletter. So on my website, it's called Untrapped Newsletter, where we have a theme and we deep dive and talk a little bit about a particular topic each week. So like escalations this week. So we won't spam you. So yeah, subscribe to that and or DM me. I'm pretty responsive.
Thanks for coming on, Chris. Great conversation. If you like the content here, please watch our last episode, which was Luke Sharon, which actually went into a completely different topic, all around marketing and especially around video, and his catch on why you should do video and how you should go about it.